Attention.
Let's talk for a second. Higher ed is moving fast, and not everything we're doing is keeping pace. Either you move with the future, or you get left behind. Insights EDU is where leaders find out what actually works. February 17th to 19th in Fort Lauderdale. Register at insightsedu.com. Ellucian Live 2026, April 19th through 22nd in beautiful Denver, Colorado. Advancing infinite possibilities. And it's higher education without limits. Don't just keep up with change, lead it. Higher education leaders from around the world are coming together at Ellucian Live 2026. Across 4 unforgettable days, discover new ways to meet students where they are and make the most of your technology through inspiring sessions and hands-on demos. Together, we're leveraging AI to create deeper human connections, support every student's journey, and open doors to lifelong learning. See you in Denver. Register now at elive.ellucian.com. It's going to be
amazing.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, and we are back another episode with my co-host, who I gotta say, I've been doing this for almost 6 years, over 1,200 episodes. He's probably my top 3 best co-hosts. I mean, this guy, smart, insightful, knows what he's doing, has tons of experience, tons of connections. So let me bring him in. He's Brent Ramden. He's CEO at Education Dynamics. Brent, how you
Thank
doing?
you, Elvin. I need to know who the other 2 are. I can actively work on my rankings because that's how it works in higher education, right? We're very rankings aware. Anyway, in all seriousness, I am thrilled to be on the conversation today. I will not spill the beans and share his name. I will let you do the intro, but recently I've had the pleasure of really chatting and really going deep into the mission and purpose of the institution, but also getting this president's sort of soulful take in terms of higher education, his personal journey in his educational pathway, and really how he brings that to lead just the amazing organization that he leads. So I'll throw it back to you now that I've built up suspense to do the intro.
And that's why you just moved up to top 2, by the way. Top 2 best co-host. Well done, man. Well done. Let's bring him in. He was here last time, February of 2023. He is Dr. Mark Milliron. He's the president and CEO at National University. Mark, welcome back.
Elvin, thank you for having me in the mix again.
Yeah, it's been a while. So that's where I want to start, right? 2023. Now it's 2025. Tell us, Mark, how has it gone over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it has been obviously a pretty interesting and exciting last couple of years in the world, but also in the happenings at National University. So proud of this team. I mean, the team has really been working, has always been committed to this mission of providing world-class student experiences for non-traditional working and military students. And like National University, for those of you who don't know us, we are a large private nonprofit undergraduate, master's, doctoral, serving about 50,000 credit students a year and about 80,000 workforce training students. About a third doctorate, about a third master's, about a third bachelor. So we're kind of a big operation. But the unique thing about us is we are 100% focused on non-traditional working and military students. The undergrad population, average age of 33, master's is 37, doctorate's 42. So we're a different kind of animal. If you come to our commencements, every age and stage, you see as young as 17 and as old as 80 getting a degree, 70% diverse, where our undergrad population is 50% active duty veteran or spouse dependent military. So we are designed on purpose for this population, founded by a Navy captain, PhD, who was heartbroken watching Vietnam veterans coming back and trying to use their GI Bill and not being able to have not having good experiences because traditional education wasn't built for them. It wasn't because traditional education is bad; it just wasn't built for them. So he said, "Let's build something for this population." And fast forward 54 years and 250,000 graduates later, and we're still causing trouble.
Wow, that's awesome. And you know what I realized? I don't think, and before I hand it off to Brent, I'll just ask you this one last question. I don't think we actually ever got your higher ed story. What's your higher ed story? How did you get to where you are today, Brent?
Ooh, that's a long, circuitous story. I'm not sure
In
you
the
want to
middle
go
of
there,
that.
but yeah. So, I come from a family of 9 kids. I have an African American brother, Native American brother, Korean sister. In addition to that, we had 25 foster kids who rotated through my house during the time I was growing up. Generally, about 2 at a time. My mom was a special needs nurse, specialized in newborns and young kids. So most of the kids were usually newborns to about 2 years old. Um, and my dad was trained in the Navy. He was an electrician, Navy chief when he finally left, and then went on to do that work. We didn't have any understanding about what higher ed was about, and in fact, we were not coached at all to go into higher ed. In fact, I actively dissuaded. So when I kind of played the rebel role and decided at 17 to actually start at a community college, it was actually pretty controversial in my family, but I knew I wanted to do it. So I bussed tables, waited tables, paid my way through, got my transferred to Arizona State, got my undergrad, got my master's, and then went on to UT Austin to get my doctorate. And it was pretty funny when I got my bachelor's degree. I think my mom finally made the realization, hey, he's like, well, if Mark can do it, everybody can do it. And so, like, every one of the kids after me got some kind of degree. So now we've got every kind of versions of degrees you can imagine across our big rowdy family. But yeah, it's the classic example of the right people at the right time showing up to support me. Really good access innovation, people like Mesa Community College, Arizona State, and UT Austin, fantastic faculty members and support people showed up, good friends and colleagues that kind of helped me along the way. And again, I was a working student. I was and definitely connected with the kind of students that we serve at National in terms of the non-traditional working, and obviously come from a military family, so all the connections are really there.
What do you, Brent?
Didn't I tell you Mark was sort of built for the moment? You know, not only is National sort of built for what I call the majority student that we have today, the modern learner. Mark himself really represents that. And when you get when you get to spend time with him, he bleeds that, and it's just it's remarkable. Mark, that's where I want to sort of peel away at in our conversation, probably in the next few minutes. I think we have the higher education industry as a whole that is now sort of waking up some parts of it and saying, hey, you know what? We really need to pay attention to these adult learners. You've built a model at National University, sort of, worried about these students in terms of their access to education, their journey through the educational process, and ultimately the life change that happens as they come through that process. What
Yeah.
changing right now? I'll tell you, our research shows some commonalities, but we've seen, increased anxiety around the cost of education and more focus on career orientation. And you've been doing this for quite some time, and I'm just wondering, what do you see as some of the changes on that took place over the last few years?
Yeah, I think one of the things we're seeing is kind of a realization that the cohort of students that are accessing higher education right now is kind of we're shining a much brighter light on that student population. I think there's a whole Today's Student Coalition, there's the Modern Learner, like all that larger work. We at National actually coined a term we call the Anders, and the Anders population, or we call them that because one of the defining design characteristics of our students is that we have to make sure we're designing for students who are students and parents, students and employed, students and deployed, students and elder care. Like that, those ands really matter, and they're not giving them up. Like we're not going to tell them to stop doing it. Like they need to be a part of that. So part of our challenge is to make sure we have the instructional strategies, the support systems, the infrastructure to make sure those students can rise and thrive. And what I would argue is in a lot of higher education, that student population is seen as a side hustle. It's not seen as the primary design thing. And here's the challenge: 70% of students in higher education have some kind of non-traditional education characteristic now. 1 out of 5 are student parents. We've got just like this big segment of students who are non-traditional working military. that the design challenge is there, and we've got to start figuring out how we, structure education in a way that'll be more effective for these students, for them to be able to rise and thrive. And it's not that, I want to make sure I say this out loud. It's not that the 18 to 20-year-olds coming right out of high school aren't important. For the love of God, we want them to be wildly successful. And boy, many of them want traditional models. They want to live on campus. They want to go full time. But we always tell them, hey, if you're 18, 20, want to live on campus, go full time. For the love of God, don't come to National. Other places you can go. But later in life, when you're a parent, or if you're working full time and you want to get that MBA, you want to get that PhD, like that's us. That's what we want to be there for. So I think part of what we have to think about, Brent, is this idea that in larger higher education, like what can we do to embrace the better with conversation, which is, let's not pit higher ed against each other. Let's realize that we want to welcome the family of higher ed opportunities, and realize if we want to serve all the close to 20 million people that want to access higher ed, guess what? We're going to need traditional models, community colleges, regional universities, innovators like National University and others, and realize they're all part of the solution. We kind of have to work together and value them all.
Yeah, Mark. And I would say right now we're probably also seeing a world in which, guess what, that 18 or 20-year-old student may also be an ander.
Yeah.
May also be looking for that journey where they're juggling life.
It is funny you say it, because one of our fastest growing segments are the 18 to 20-year-old. And we're not trying. We do not want that segment in some ways, but they're coming anyway because they want to work while they're going to school. But I want to go back to your original question, because I'd love to get your take on this as well. Like we have a very clear theory of change, like how we think we're going to get to our mission of providing world-class student experiences for our population. Like we think we have to embrace next generation education, which is not a trendy phrase. That is the technologies, the techniques, the policies, the practices that are progressing the world of education. That next gen education, we have to wrap it in whole human support, which is the right support at the right time for the right student. So it means for the rock stars, get out of their way. Create a low bureaucracy, low friction, high value way for them to get through. For folks who need more scaffolding, it might be academic scaffolding, financial scaffolding, some kind of like childcare, whatever it is. What can we do to provide that support? Next gen wrapped in whole human. But we really want to aim it at what we call value rich education, which is, credential rich, which is what are the family of credentials that I'm going to help you with? It might be a combination of certs together with associates, together with a bachelor's, whatever it might be. And can we architect that into our degree pathway? But also make it connection rich, because what we know is those connections you make in higher education, student to student, student to faculty, student to professionals in your space, can make all the difference in the world. But also experience rich. We have close to 10,000 clinical sites across the country doing work in education or in mental health or in cybersecurity. Those experiences mean everything for that student. And this goes back to our idea. This is where I'd love to kind of get your riff on this. Is we don't think students come to National for a degree. We don't. We think our students come to National to change their lives. And they think the degree is a means to that end. They think the degree or the cert or the experience or the connection, that's going to change their lives. And our job is to architect that family of experiences that are going to help that person change their lives.
You know what, Mark? That reminds me, early in my career, I was in this small town in West Virginia. And at the time, I was helping a 2-year institution, really adopt some portal technology to help their students sort of access things online. And they serve primarily an adult population. Long story short, this single mom walked in holding a baby, and she didn't ask, "What degrees do you have?" She didn't ask, "Hey, I really want to peel things back and understand the pathway here that I need to go through." She walked in there and she goes, "I'd like a better life for my child." And I'll tell you, that registered with me, and it changed my career forever, because I realized that's the magic of higher education. And to hear a leader like yourself, and really I know this seeps into National University, this is NU at the core, question the product of education so it actually delivers on the outcome
Right.
of the user or the consumer of education. I really think that it's provocative, because many times we think higher education is this fixed structure that we offer a degree, whether it's a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, or even a 3-year degree now, right? And what you just described there around the pathway and the process is counter to decades or hundreds of years of higher ed, which is you show up. And you guys remember back in the old days when you didn't have like everything online, you had to walk to the
Yeah.
financial aid office, walk to student accounts, walk to sign up for your classes, walk to whatever. Well, the only thing we've done is we've digitized that, right? And we've created a bunch of to-dos. And I feel like if we genuinely care about the outcome, you start with the outcome
Right.
and then you figure out what is the journey. You figure out what are the stepping stones. And the only other thing, I'm a little bit sort of biased here again as first generation college student myself. That incremental journey that delivers self-confidence, and it could be through micro credentials, it could be through certificates, it could be through something that says you earned a life skill or a job skill, that drives success. And I
It's
think that's
academic.
highly
It's academic momentum. What we
Yep.
see in the data is it's pretty clear. Is if you build credential pathways where people get certifications before they get associates, before they get bachelors, whatever it might be, it actually creates academic momentum. There's this myth out there that if they get the cert, they're going to leave, and it's like no. Actually, what you're doing is you're creating academic momentum because they're learning how to finish what they start. And secondly, by the way, if you have low income first generation folks, if they end up having to stop out because life happens, if they have a cert or they have something underneath them, they're more likely to be able to have a good job to be able to come back, like whatever that pathway is. But Brent, really going to your idea about this idea of the design, we're big into design thinking, right? We actually run something called the National University Leadership Academy, where we train 25 rising star leaders every year. We have a full curriculum of everything from student success theory to learning analytics to finance to policy to structure. And one of the things we do is we train them in design thinking. And part of the challenge is you have to really understand what people are after when they're coming to education. And then, you begin with empathy, understand who you're serving, and then design for that outcome. So what you said is, that's what I'm so proud of this team of is, boy, they're designing around that outcome. The realization that, hey, this isn't like, it was painful to watch industries have to go through realizations like, you're not in the business of taking a piece of paper, printing on it, and distributing it with trucks around the country and paper boys and girls. Like, your job is to distribute information. So that means when a new infrastructure comes in to distribute that information, you're going to do it differently. Same thing with us. Like, our job is not just to provide classes. And I'd say this all the time. It's one of our principles here at National. College is not a collection of classes. College is a family of experiences that happens to include classes, but it's all kinds of other experiences, co-curricular relationships, whatever it might be. But it means you got to design differently if you're going to do it.
Mark, I want to peel back on that because I feel like higher education, and I know a lot of people listening to this podcast will go, how do you launch a new program? Well, you do the market study, you figure out, but you figure out how many folks are looking for a bachelor's in whatever, and then you figure out how to essentially grow that enrollment. And what you just shared is, no, you don't. You figure out what drives success for the population you want to serve. Maybe you could share at a high level how you guys approach portfolio creation at National University, serving the Anders and serving it
Yeah.
with a whole student approach.
Yeah, I think we are constantly looking at the family of credentials that will allow our people to have. We always talk about labor market valued credentials, credentials that will allow them to be able to get on the economic journey that they're on. Not to mention experiences that they're going to have in the process that's going to help them live healthier lives, have more personal choice. By the way, durable skills, like what are the durable skills that are going to make this person more marketable and actually more impactful in the larger? We have a whole community hall later next week, all about entrepreneurial skills and like how we build entrepreneurial and entrepreneurial skills into our programs, because those are radically important for the success of our students when they kind of move out. So again, part of our design principle is to constantly think about how you pull those together. But in our programs, it is constantly asking the question is, are these credentials going to give them more economic power, more personal power? And are we architecting them with the right kind of curriculum that's going to get them to that outcome as they're coming to the other side?
Mark, I have a chicken or egg question here because you have a lot of folks in the industry going, it's time to break up the degree. So they say, we're going to disaggregate the degree and turn it into certs or micro-credentials. Or do you essentially start with the certs and micro-credentials and essentially offer pathways through that journey?
Yeah. I'm going to say right now, like I love both the chicken and the egg. And what I'll tell you about that is like, this is not an either or. Like, I think there are times you begin with a certification or you begin with a skill map, and that leads because there is something that will drive and provide, resources for that student. I remember back, I'm going to date myself, but I'm going to go all the way back to the late 1990s. There actually was a certification program called the Mouse Certification Program. Anybody remember that? That was the Microsoft Office Users
Oh,
Certification,
I remember it
Mouse
now that you're
Certification.
spelling it out.
And it was all about Microsoft Office training because that was the coin of the realm. Everybody had to get Microsoft Office training when microcomputers really took off. That actually created opportunities for people, and that's where CompTIA came in, right? You suddenly had those certs. And so sometimes you can begin with the cert, and then other times you want to begin with the degree and then carve out certifications within the degree that might be useful. The other thing we like to do, Brent, is actually search out the industry certifications that already exist
Mhm.
and embed them into our degree. So go get a SHRM certification in the middle of your HR master's, right? Because you're going to add all kinds of value to that person as they're doing it, or build the cert they're going to need anyway into their experience, right? So we build, for example, our Cal TPA, test prep is built right into our program because they know they're going to take that as a rising teacher. So again, just part of your process is to be thinking about how do you add the family of credentials and experiences that are going to create the most power for these folks, and then think about the way you're going to deliver it. That the founding design principle of National was built on the 30-day deployment problem, which meant we had a lot of active duty service members who, when they got recalled, it was 30 days notice, which meant and they were busy. They were parents and they were working, whatever it was. So we designed a model based on 1 month courses,
Mhm.
specifically so students could take one course a month because their cognitive load, like I can do one course a month, 5 courses over 16 weeks. If I get called back to duty, I have to drop all 5 courses. Not to mention doing 5 things at the same time while I'm raising kids, while I'm working full time doesn't work. But cognitive load wise, give me one class and I can focus on that while I'm doing this, while I'm doing that. And then if I get called up, guess what? I can finish the course before I have to go. Right. So and that 4 week course model is with us today. Our students absolutely love it. So now we have 4 week courses, 8 week courses, we have one-on-one models. We were actually early competency. We were like one of the first universities to do full competency based education. So like I truthfully think you can unbundle this with one curricular wise, but you could also begin to re-engineer on the instructional strategy side to figure out how you're going to pull it together.
So Mark, for a lot of folks in the industry, they're probably going to listen to this and hear, well, it only works at National, but I also think you said something a few minutes ago that's really important. You curate your programs, their journeys, and everything else to allow for that student to take as much education as they want or need, and then return to you in the future
And
as
then
you
if you have the off ramps and on ramps, if you
Yep.
have the right kind of off ramps and really good on ramps, they can go out and come back, go out and come back if it makes sense for them. And again, we want them. You have to be careful, and this is somewhat controversial because I have been a champion of hardcore persistence work, helping students stick
Mm,
and stay. Right. I do think there are times in the space that we worship at the altar of retention. And I
mhm,
think you have to realize people with complicated lives, hey, if your kid is really sick or this is going on or that's going on, there's got to be an elegant way for them to be able to take a break and go take care of that situation, whatever it might be. Or if they're going through a really nasty divorce or they're changing jobs or whatever it is, there's life situations here. And if you don't if you don't figure out a way where they can elegantly like put it on hold for a second and then come back when it makes sense or stay
mhm.
connected, it's a real problem for the students. So we've really worked hard at that. And I do think the credentials along the way thing helps because you can
Yep.
give them value cliffs or value like launch points, right? Where value trampolines almost where they can just keep bouncing up and bouncing up because they got that like credential along the way.
Mark, there's a lot of conversation right now about how the nature of work is changing. And if you think about it, we prepare folks for in higher education for a career and a journey in life. Um, how do you guys process, for example, the need for workforce retraining, or maybe there's someone who entered a field um, 10 or 20 years ago, and that field is being disrupted with AI right now. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're having some of those conversations internally. I think this is where maybe the traditional structures of higher education struggles to say, hey, we know this workforce that's going to be displaced, or the function will change in some way, needs to access learning in a unique way. How is National sort of thinking about, we call them the career changers, in the labor world, and how does your educational model fit that?
Let's go.
To insightsedu.com. Remember that URL because let's be honest, how much of what you're doing at work right now is actually working? It's time to inject fresh ideas and effective strategies. And Insights EDU is for these leaders that want to see results. The conversations are direct, the sessions are outstanding, and the people in the room are there to solve real problems, not protect the status quo. Insights EDU 2026 is February 17 to 19 in Fort Lauderdale. No fluff, no recycled playbooks, just what works now. Register today at insightsedu.com. Ellucian Live 2026 is taking place April 19th through 22nd, 2026 in Denver, Colorado. Advancing infinite possibilities. Turn innovation into action with AI-powered solutions, student-first strategies, and a global network of fellow leaders at Ellucian Live 2026, higher education's premier global technology conference. It's going to be
Amazing.
Well, we were built for that, right? Because by definition, somebody coming out of the military and
Mm-hmm.
transitioning into civilian life is a career changer, right?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
we were built for that from the very beginning. How do you take, and it's in that case, you wouldn't call them a displaced worker, you would just call them a transitioned worker, right? In terms of where they're going. But part of our job is to help make that transition better. And I'll give you a concrete example about what we mean in this. Um, what we know from working with in the military, we were a fierce advocate of increasing military tuition assistance for active duty soldiers and airmen and sailors. And one of the reasons we did it was because one, it hadn't been raised since 2002, which is crazy, but so it was way too low. But two, because what the data shows, and the military will share this with you, military tuition assistance helps them recruit people. It helps them retain people. It helps them have better readiness for the folks who are there. But the fourth R in that is reentry. Students, I mean, the service members coming out of the military who've done education reenter better. They do better economically. They're better with their families. They have better health outcomes. It's almost like every dollar on TA saves you $5 on VA, right? So and for us, it is, how can we be that provider of lifelong education for people to keep them learning? Because guess what? We're probably going to have to shift careers, change jobs, whatever it might be, which is why durable skills are so important, because they actually carry with you through multiple kinds of degrees. But it does mean, like, we just have to keep pushing ourselves. Are we going to be able to meet, in 1971, it was the military transition, which is a big deal. But remember, in the 70s, it was robotics, and we suddenly had to change people who were doing factory line jobs. And then
Yep.
just like, line by line, we had to like help people who were doing COBOL programming suddenly had to learn like, Java, like, and we're suddenly doing all these different changes for people. Like, we've always had to be there. But this is really important. I think to serve all students, you have to see all students,
Mm,
not just, when I say picture a college student, almost everybody pictures an 18 to 20-year-old on a campus with a backpack, and they don't
yep.
realize that's not the majority student. They don't think of a 35-year-old woman with two kids working full time, right? You've got to see those students, and when you see them, you start designing for them differently, which doesn't mean, hey, let's just do what we already do at night.
Yep.
It's something totally different. It means, like, how do we meet them where they are and take them where they're going to go? Which might mean they're going to work a sustenance job as they've been displaced, but they want to be able to get there another degree to get them onto another career. So how do you help them in that working learning space and get them to that next career?
Yeah, and talking about populations, congratulations, you were recently announced an Opportunity College Carnegie classification by ACE. And I think that just represents the populations that are attracted to National University. What does that mean to you guys, and how does it encourage you to further innovate on that front?
Well, thank you for that. And one, I just got to congratulate the American Council on Education and the Carnegie Foundation because they worked for some time on this new classification system. And we got the classic classification. We're a nonprofit, private, large undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral institution with research. Like, so that's our core classification. But I love that they did this, kind of beginning to classify institutions based on access and earnings. And are you high, and there are institutions who are proudly low access. They tell you they only take so many students and they're really high on earnings. That's fine. That's who they are. But I love the fact they're shining a light on institutions that are high on access, which means lower costs, very flexible. They provide kind of good programming for folks who are in these complicated situations, but then they're also high in earnings. They have good outcomes for the people coming out of the programs. And there's only 400 of the 4,500 institutions in the country that got that OCU, Opportunity College University classification. We are proudly one of them. Lots of other good folks like UMGC and Dallas colleges and other people who are doing that. We're in great company. But I love the fact that ACE and Carnegie is shining a light on this population of institutions, mainly because it shows the students that it's possible. There are institutions that care about you and that will make it possible for you to graduate. Because if all you think that's out there is Dartmouth and Swarthmore and Stanford and Princeton, you have a hard time thinking, I'm going to be able to work and take care of kids and get the degree. Right. They really feel like juggling it all is going to be impossible. And this makes it more likely that they realize, no, it's possible. Here are some good models for it.
Yeah, Mark, I think this is the call to our industry in the decades to come. We now live in a society that's aging, with technology that's evolving faster than ever, with the declining high school population.
Yeah.
If we don't do exactly what you just said, we ignore the majority of students in higher education today.
We had our entire senior leadership team, about 50 people across the institution, read the book, The Perennials. Phenomenal book. And it blows up the kind of the kind of hackneyed generational war thing, and really talks about this fact that we have this hybrid generation of young and old all together. But because of lifespan and health span, we're all going to be in this big soup for a while, and we better figure out different systems to be able to connect. And again, it just makes you think differently about how you reach. But I got to tell you, one of the things that we are also trying to do, in addition to telling the Anders story, and by the way, we have some, if you go to nu.edu/Anders, we have some just phenomenal stories of students that kind of show you what that's like. And it's worth kind of taking a visit. But one of the things we do with our commencements, every one of our commencements, we challenge our graduates. We say, our charge to every one of our graduates is each one reach one. And the idea of each one reach one is, if you are a non-traditional working or military student, you walking across the stage, you are now a symbol, you're a model that it's possible. And there's somebody's out there who's thinking about this pathway who doesn't think it's possible. And especially for low income first generation students, each one reach one challenges them. It doesn't have to be at national, but encourage somebody to get on an education pathway and show them that it's possible because of the fact that you've done this. I think we have to do more and more of this because the commencement kind of celebrations that people always talk about are always at the traditionals, right? So how can we get people seeing, it's more likely at NU to see little kids cheering for their parents getting degrees than it is for parents cheering for their 22-year-old to get a degree, which is kind of great.
I think I think it's meaningful. It delivers so much to society, so much to our economy when we can move these populations up the skills ladder and we can take care of their lives and really bring generational change from the institution. I'm going to take you in a slightly different direction now. All right, so a lot is happening around AI. A lot is happening around what that means for education, but also what it means for career and jobs in the future. What are one or two things that you're doing and you and your team are doing around incorporating AI into the learning experience?
Yeah, it's a great conversation. Everybody's having it.
Yeah.
We've actually brought experts in to talk with our board, and we've been, done full kind of deep dives internally. We have what's called an AI council, which is a cross section of operators internally together with academics, and really kind of figuring out how we make the most of the moment. We also, by the way, are doing the same kind of thing with XR and XR VR to understand what that's going to play out. But Our basic framework around AI is this about, with, and beyond idea, which is it is educational malpractice not to do this. So it is the right thing for us to think about, with, and beyond. The about piece is every program leader at NU, all 150 of them, anybody leading a program should be thinking about what are the AI tools, resources, capabilities that their students should be developing and or having experiences with while they're going through that program. So there's AI for healthcare, there's AI for criminal justice, there's AI for business leaders, AI for educators. Like, what are the AI tools and the AI capabilities, literacy things that those people need to have, and can you weave that in? Very similar to what, people were probably beginning to ask in the late 1990s about the internet. Are you thinking about the internet skills that these people should be having? Same thing. Are you kind of weaving that in? And that learning about AI becomes a big part of who we are. So we're doing all kinds of work in that area, including like we have whole rubrics in our College of Education about what is the ethical use of AI in different assignments, and they've developed basically a five-part framework where teachers can tell students this is a 3 or this is a 5. It tells them how much they can use AI in the assignments or how much they should. It's really neat. It's a great kind of framework. I'll shoot that to you later. But the about thing is one. The second is with, which means it is imperative that we start thinking about how we use AI to help students with their learning journey, which means helping them navigate higher education, which is often the hardest part, which is everything from choosing courses to finding resources to connecting with the right person. Those AI resources are incredibly helpful. So like we've done everything from chatbots to like other kinds of like, agents that can help our advisors and other things. That learning with AI is going to be a really big deal. And we should be able to help them find curricular resources, support resources, whatever it might be. I jokingly say that this is, I really feel strongly about this. The reason high income, second, third, fourth generation people are more successful in higher education pathways is because they've always had AI. What I mean by that is a second, third, fourth generation person with resources. If that kid at that school, if something goes wrong, the world showed up to support them. Aunts and uncles and friends and cousins and other people, they all came there. They were scaffolded by all kinds of people. They had AI all around them, right? So that version of AI has always kind of existed, but now we have the tools to bring to a first generation low income learner the same kind of wisdom that's around that kid, right? We can bring that kind of resource, which is
I
really
love
big deal.
that. I've never heard someone really draw the comparison, Mark, and really link AI to democratizing what I believe you call the scaffolding, the support structures in the higher education journey.
And even more so, AI could get us to a time where we can make human moments more precious, meaning we make sure that student meets the person they should meet. They meet the faculty they should connect with. They meet the advisor. They meet the professional. We could actually use AI to make human moments better, right? If we do it. So it's about, with, and then beyond is like, make sure you are still focusing on the beyond AI elements, which is the ethics and the kind of like process of leveraging it and realizing the humanity elements of it. And how do you make sure that it's not all about AI? It's actually the human side of this really stays in. So that about, with, and beyond framework is guiding kind of like our work. And I'm really proud of our team that has been driving the AI conversations internally. Our AI council are fantastic, and they really help us be mindful, right, about how we're going to drive that.
I love the framework because an hour ago I used AI to help me with something, and it was actually inaccurate on something, and and it feels magical when it just spits out a lot of information at you, and then I sort of questioned it, and so you're right, we need that framework to use AI appropriately in whatever environment we're bringing it into. As you think about, and we spent some time talking about the student, we spent some time talking about the processes, the support structures for students. Let's talk a little bit about your staff. What makes the people at National different?
Well, first of all, I love our team. And I'll say the thing that's kind of great about the national team, and Brent, I think you met a whole bunch of them probably when you were out here.
I did. I was fortunate to do that. I gotta say, and they're all high energy, optimistic, and again, it was surreal, just amazing.
And part of that is, if you're pulling a team together, it really helps. I talk about the get grounded, get real, get going framework, which is getting grounded is getting crystal clear on your mission, your vision, your ways of work, your strategy. And then get real is turn the lights on and find out, are you good or you're bad? Like, what can you do? How can you get better? But really share the data and then have good people like who are grounded work around that data and then get going, like start making progress. And I'm a big believer in aggregated marginal gains, like small moves, like everything is like every little thing can kind of get you better. And we've done the work to get crystal clear about who we are and who we serve. And one of the things, if you work at National, we are crystal clear that you are serving non-traditional working and military students. If you don't want to serve that student population, there are great places in other parts of higher education you can go to. But if you want to serve that population, come here. And I think we end up with a different kind of person as a result, right?
Yeah.
We end up, there's not really elitism here. There's not really the same kind of territorialism, all kinds of focus on the mission, all kinds of focus on the outcomes. And of course, there's all the normal stuff in organizations you deal with, but in general, the team is so committed to this work that we're willing to kind of learn together. The second thing is we're power learners. Like we are constantly challenging each other to kind of up our game and learn together. We've built learning together into our infrastructure. Our board dinners the night before, we always bring in external guests and challenge our board to kind of get smarter. We actually do a monthly reading with our University Leadership Council. In fact, we just finished the book from Adam Grant on hidden potential. We did the book on the Power of Moments with Heath and Heath, which is absolutely fantastic. We did Unreasonable Hospitality. What an amazing book! And you'd think, what does a restaurant book have to teach you about a university? Read the book and come back and talk to me. You're going to be blown away by the journey of Madison Park. 11 Madison Park, from a 2-star restaurant in New York to the best restaurant in the world. And it was just about the focus on excellence and service and connection. But those kind of readings, like, just get this team smarter and everybody kind of works together around it. So, but I do think, that that they are best served by leaders who do the work of getting clear about our mission, vision, ways of work, and then committed to turning on the lights and sharing the data so we can all be student success scientists. I want everybody at the entire university to be student success scientists, including the students. Like, I want them to have data to kind of guide their journey. And then the whole idea of like, we're just moving, we're going, we're trying to get a little better every day if we're going to do it. And boy, again, I'm surrounded by rock stars, which is really fun.
Well, Mark, I think you do a good job of setting the North Star, and having met some of your leaders and your team members, you feel that humility from them as well. Again, it's amazing, Alvin, to interact with the team at National. Mark and I can probably talk for another hour easily about about everything going on at National, but I also wanted Alvin to pull you back and also give you a chance to jump into the conversation.
Yeah, this has been an absolute masterclass. Seriously, and I think I've only said that on maybe 5 episodes of the 1,000 plus that we've done. So Brent, you're very lucky. You're top 2 now, top 5, and Mark, you are absolute master.
Brent wants to know the other 5.
I knew that was coming.
Exactly, Mark. Exactly.
All right, Mark. Here we go. So you answered this question 2 years ago, and I'm sure it's going to be totally different now. I'm very curious to know, what do you see as the future of higher education, Mark?
I actually, what's really encouraging about the world of higher education, I know a lot of people are down on higher education right now. I got to tell you, I see more willingness to face hard questions than ever before. I see a lot of introspection. I see a lot of people kind of being far less elitist and far more mission focused than ever before. There are clearly challenges in segments of the world of higher education, but one of the things I really like seeing is I I really think there's more of a conversation of people understanding that there are different really valuable segments of higher education. Like, I love the work that our, kind of world-renowned liberal arts colleges are doing, our world-renowned Research One universities are doing. And I also love the work that our community colleges are doing and that our regional state universities are doing, and that the places like independent private universities like National, people are kind of understanding there's a lot of goodness out there, and there's less better thanism, and there's more, how can we be better with and be strategic? I do think we've got to just continue this value conversation, because I do think the presupposition about 20 years ago or 15 years ago that, oh boy, the economy is going to require more people to have more education than ever before. It's just got to be college degree, college degree, college degree for everybody. And there was a bit of like weirdness in that caused some, challenges around it because it didn't value the fact there's different kinds of learning. Like my nephew is probably one of the most successful entrepreneurs and leaders of a land development and real estate development organization in Western North Carolina. Has no college degrees. Everything is construction certifications, and he is unbelievable successful at what he does. And at the same time, I have a brother who's a doctorate in educational technology, who then went on to become a farmer, like fell in love with it, and that's what he ended up learning and becoming really good at. And I'm just kind of showing like the different kinds of learning that's out there. And so, to your question, like when I think about where higher education is going, is I do think the stress of the moment and the challenges of the moment are opening up a broader dialogue. And I'm really glad that National can be in this conversation right now, because we're really trying to shine a light on the Anders student population. And I think if we can get a lot of design thinking minds on it, we can help solve a huge problem for the country. 43 million people with some college and no credential. Okay, let me say it. 43 million people, some college and no credential. The vast majority of them left in good academic standing. They left because life happened, and they left often because the instructional program they were a part of wasn't flexible, didn't meet them where they were. I jokingly tell people this is not a moment where our competition is each other. Our competition is poverty. Our competition is lack of opportunity. So what can we do together? Like, we'll take 1% of that 43 million. You can have the rest, right? Like, there's plenty of that. But if there's 43 million that tried it, and dude, how many millions are there people who never put their toe in the water because they didn't think it was possible? Like, there's no way I can do that. They just never even tried. So for me, like, if we can shine a light on the possibilities of these pathways, and people realize, hey, there are institutions out there, you can start at a community college, transfer to a university, do this, and do there's all kinds of pathways to do it. I think we can solve some pretty significant problems in the world of higher education. So I don't want to sound Pollyannish, but I definitely want to sound optimistic that I do think in the midst of challenges, sometimes opportunities are there. And I do think the economic displacement of the moment, I think the fact that we're going to have so many people with college degrees who are going to have to go back in different kinds of education, it's going to make us always rethink what we're doing in our education pathways. And I think if we can be open and think about how we can lead actually on pathways to possibility and get them there, we can really do some exciting work together. And here's the biggest danger in this process is the one best wayism, is people acting as though there's one best way in higher education. And it's comical for me to talk about that. And I'm going to tell a story out of school on this one. I won't name the university, but I was consulting with a university in Japan years ago, not that long ago, actually. And they were interested in the adult population, the non-traditional, the working student. And that's, by the way, completely abnormal in Japan. That is not a normal thing. Somebody coming back to school, like, you're considered a failure if you have to come back to school. So the fact they were thinking about actually, you can clearly see the economic changes that are happening. And so they're really thinking, how do we offer these programs? And so we were having these conversations about how they could possibly roll it out. And one of the most brutal conversations, and I couldn't even stop myself from just putting my head on the table, is the big stopper was, how are we going to get these adult students to wear uniforms? Oh my gosh, because their mental model of what college was, right, was just that one model. And I think that's where the one best wayism really comes in. It's like the whole let them eat Harvard thing. Like, you can't do that, right? You've got to think about like the broader kinds of learning that's out there, including, career and technical education and all kinds of like specific training. There's all kinds of goodness out there. And let's figure out how we can open it up, connect it, and learn from each other in the process. Higher ed at its best is all about the case model, and that stands for copy and steal everything. There's all kinds of great ideas out there, and how can we pull it in and kind of do some good stuff together?
Oh man, I love this. So many golden nuggets. I gotta say, this is just it's a masterclass, unbelievable. And I love my big takeaway, Mark, was thank you all the people who haven't even tried, haven't put they dip their toe in the water. That just yes, exactly. My God, let's find them, let's get to them. So I love that. First, let me outro my top 2 of all time greatest guest co-hosts, Brent Ramden, CEO at
I'm getting there.
Education
All right.
Dynamics.
You moved up a rank, Brett.
All
Look at
right. I love it.
that.
And thanks as always for being here, Brent. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And let me outro our guest today. He is Dr. Mark Mill-Iron. He's the president and CEO at National University. Mark, thank you for coming back and for dropping some serious golden nuggets. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I love being a part of the dialogue. And again, shout out to the entire national team. As Brett noted, we've got amazing team members who are doing this work, great board members, and radically inspirational students. So it's fun to be in the work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Brent. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You've just EdUp.
Be honest with yourself for a second. How much of what you're doing at work right now is actually working? That question came up again and again in Insights EDU last year. You guys already know this isn't your typical higher ed conference. And I've got to be honest, I've been to a lot of higher ed events, and Insights EDU is just different. The conversations are direct, the sessions are outstanding, and the people in the room are there to fix real problems, not defend the status quo. That's why Insights EDU 2026 matters. It's 3 days in Fort Lauderdale, February 17 to 19, focusing on real strategy for higher ed. No fluff, no recycled playbooks, just what works now. You can keep wasting time with what feels safe, or you can get in the room where smarter decisions are being made. Register today at insightsedu.com.
You just made the list!
Attention.
It's time to register for Lucian Live, April 19th through 22nd, 2026 in Denver, Colorado, advancing infinite possibilities. And it's higher education without limits. Don't just keep up with change, lead it. Higher ed leaders from around the world are coming together at Lucian Live 2026. Across 4 unforgettable days, you'll discover new ways to meet students where they are and make the most of your technology through inspiring sessions and hands-on demos. Together, we're leveraging AI to create deeper human connections, support every student's journey, and open doors to lifelong learning. See you in Denver. Register now at elive.elucian.com.